So in this tutorial, we're going to combine a few of the tools and methods we've learnt in previous tutorials. So what I have here, I have a picture of this ice cream shop. And if I hide that layer, beneath I have this image of a cliff. So what I want to do is take this ice cream shop and place it somewhere in this area here. So I mentioned the different ways of selecting an object. I'm just going to zoom into this shop, and using the quick selection tool, I'm going to very quickly select the shop. Now personally I think the quick selection tool is best for this because there's a variety of different colours and contrasts in this image. So I'm just going to play this next bit in fast time just to quickly show you what I'm doing rather than take you through bit by bit, because this can take a couple of minutes to do. Just remember, when deselecting an area, hold down Alt so you can see how my little plus symbol turns into a minus symbol to deselect the area which you don't want in your selection. So I'm just going back and forth, selecting and deselecting the areas until I'm happy with my selection. Okay, so once you're happy with your selection, go to Select and Mask and have a look at that and refine anything which you need to refine. I'm just refining these edges around here which look a bit off. Okay, it's a bit rough around the edges, but we can fix that later. I'm now going to feather the edges slightly. Let's tidy up this area around here a little bit. Okay, I'm happy with that. And now what I want to do is I'm going to output this to a new layer this time. So if I click Output to New Layer and then click OK, there we go. It's dumped my ice cream shop in the middle of my composition. So what it's done is it's hidden the original layer. If I re-show that, you can see how it's hidden that layer. It's extracted what I need effectively. I'm zooming out using Command minus. So using the Move tool, I'm going to move this to roughly where I want it to be. Let's put it over here. And now to rotate that slightly, you can go to Edit, Free Transform, or use the shortcut key Command T on a Mac or Control T on a PC. Let's rotate that slightly so it's in line with these buildings back here. Just zoom in. And then press return once you're happy with the positioning. Now, it looks very superimposed at the moment, so there's a couple of things I want to do to make it blend in with the background. The first thing I want to do is delete part of this image, so this bit of hill comes up over the image itself. So this is where the polygonal lasso tool comes in very handy. So I'm just going to zoom in, Command plus, and I'm going to quickly just create a line in line with this hill here. So I've made sure I've selected it on this layer, which is the shop, and I'm going to simply hit backspace to delete that part of the image. So now, if I press Command D to deselect, it appears that the hill's coming up over that part of the image. If I zoom out, that's a little bit better. I think it still looks a little bit big, so I'm just going to select that again and do Command T to transform it. And while holding down Shift, I'm going to shrink this down just a little bit. Move that along slightly. Hit return to confirm. There we go. I'm more happy with the positioning of that now. Now it still looks a bit forced. It still looks a bit crisp. It's too in focus for how far away it is. It should be a little bit out of focus where it is. So what I can do is put a blur on this particular layer. Now you don't add a blur through an adjustment layer. Instead, you have to go to Filter and choose your filters from here. So I'm going to go to Blur and then Gaussian Blur. Bear in mind, this is what's called a destructive edit. So this will permanently add a blur to this image. You can increase the radius to see how much it blurs it by. So I want to get it blurred so it's just a little bit out of focus, not too over the top. I would say that will do. So I click OK. and that's starting to look a little bit better. Let me zoom in. One thing I can see is these pillars look a little bit wonky. So again, using the polygon lasso tool, what I suggest is you just trim a little bit off the edge of these, like so. So if I select that and press backspace, it's giving me a nice flat side, like so. Being an architectural object, it will be pretty much close to completely smooth. So this will look fine. I don't suggest making as clean a cut on something like a person where there's going to be some more natural contouring. So that's a little bit better. Let's do the same on the other side. That's okay because it's quite bright. We can't really see that. There, I'm more happy with that now. Now one thing as well is the contrast is slightly off. So one tool I haven't covered yet, which is very, very handy, or a series of tools I should say, is the burn and dodge tools. So what these do is the burn tool basically paints a sort of darkness onto your image. It kind of underexposes whatever you paint that onto. So if I make this brush size slightly larger with closed square brackets and paint on this over here, you'll see how it's reducing the exposure on this building. Make it slightly larger still. But I want to stop around there because there's some more light on that side where all these buildings are. Let's kind of just paint it down here. There won't be much light on this side, especially where the hill is. And this pillar should be pretty much in darkness because it's being lit from the back. So let's make that pillar completely dark. Down here I'll darken this area slightly at the bottom. Let me zoom in. But we see we have some light coming from this angle, so I'll come to that in a second. Let me darken this side of the image. But what I might want to do is add a little bit of light up there where this light's coming through. So rather than the burn tool, the dodge tool will lighten your image. So let's add a bit of brightness to that part there. Just change which side of this pillar is being illuminated. Undo that, that's probably a bit too harsh. There we go. And let me just burn the opposite side a little bit more. There we go, add a bit of burn down here as well. Okay, if I zoom out slightly, let's burn this area a little bit more. There'll be no light reaching this part of the building. There we go. So it's kind of emulating the direction of the light slightly more. So if I zoom out and look at my image again, that looks slightly more like it belongs within the composition. I could go back and refine it further. I mean, that looks a little bit jagged around there, so perhaps I want to use the polygon lasso tool to kind of trim that area off and spend a bit more time on my dodge and burn just to kind of tidy it up a little bit. But overall, I'm quite happy with how that sits within the composition. It doesn't look too unnatural anymore. It looks slightly more like it actually belongs there.